Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a whole stack of information, really dig into it, and pull out those crucial nuggets, the things you really need to know. Today, we're diving into something fundamental for understanding society, the toolkit sociologists use for their research. We're talking about how they make sure their findings are, well, trustworthy. How do they study huge groups of people? We'll be unpacking sampling, reliability, and validity. Big words, maybe, but they're key to figuring out how much we can really trust a study's conclusions. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, social research has this built-in challenge. Human society is just so complex, so vast. How do you possibly study something like, say, national identity or shifting family structures without interviewing literally everyone? These concepts, sampling, reliability, validity, they're basically the framework, the rules of the road for doing that sensibly.
Okay, so first up, sampling. Why sampling? Why not just talk to everyone involved? Well, as you can probably guess, if you're studying, I don't know, voting habits in the entire U.S., you just can't interview every single voter. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So the idea is to pick a smaller group, a sample, very carefully, gather information from them, and then hopefully what you find out applies to the bigger group too. Generalize it back.
Precisely. And the whole point of a good sample is that it mirrors the larger population. It has to be like a miniature version, reflecting the diversity and characteristics of the whole group you're interested in. If your mini version is off, well, your conclusions about the bigger picture will be off too. It's foundational.
Right. So where do researchers even start building this miniature version? How do they pick people?
Yeah.
They need a starting point, right?
Yeah.
Which is called the sampling frame, which is basically just a list of everyone in the target population they could potentially pick from. So if you're studying students at one particular university, the official student register, that's your sampling frame.
Exactly. It's the pool, the complete potential pool you'll draw your sample from. And crucially, the quality of that frame is paramount. If your list is incomplete or outdated or biased in some way, like if it misses certain groups of students, then even the best sampling method applied to it will result in a skewed sample.
Okay, that makes total sense. The foundation needs to be solid. Now, once you have that list, that frame, how do you actually choose? I gather there are different ways to do it.
There are two main families of techniques, really. Probability sampling and non-probability sampling. And the really big difference boils down to one thing. Does everyone on that list in that frame have a known equal chance of being picked?
Okay, probability versus non-probability, equal chance or not.
And the choice between them isn't just random. It really depends on what you're trying to find out. Your research question. Are you aiming for findings you can generalize statistically to the whole population? Or are you maybe looking for deep understanding or trying to reach a specific, hard-to-find group?
Let's tackle probability sampling first. That's the one aiming for equal chance, right? To get that representative sample.
Start of the goal, yes. These methods use randomization techniques specifically to minimize bias in who gets selected.
So the most basic one is just random sampling. Sounds straightforward. Like everyone in the frame gets a number, and you use a random number generator or maybe draw names from a hat, metaphorically speaking, to pick your participants.
That's the pure ideal, yes. Simple random sampling, everyone has the exact same chance. But, in practice, for really large populations, generating that perfect list and ensuring pure randomness can be technically challenging.
Right. So maybe there are more practical ways. Like systematic sampling. How does that work? That's where you use a system, like picking every, say, 10th person on the list.
Exactly. You calculate an interval, like if you need 100 people from a list of 1,000, your interval is 10. You pick a random starting point in the first 10 names, and then select every 10th person after that. It's often easier than simple random sampling, especially with long lists.
And it usually gives a good random spread.
Unless
there's some hidden pattern in the list itself that lines up with your interval. If, for some reason, every 10th person on your list shares a specific characteristic relevant to your study, you could accidentally introduce bias. So researchers need to check for that.
Okay, interesting. Now, what about making sure the sample really reflects the population's diversity, like age groups or gender balance? That sounds like stratified sampling, is that right?
Spot on. Stratified sampling is designed specifically for that. You first divide your whole population into relevant subgroups, or strata, maybe by age, location, ethnicity, whatever's important for your study.
Okay, so you sort the population into these buckets first.
Yes. And then you draw a random sample from within each bucket, but you do it proportionally.
Yeah.
So if your overall population is 30% aged 1830, then 30% of your final sample will be randomly selected from that 1830 stratum.
Ah, I see. So you guarantee the proportions in your sample match the proportions in the real population. Precisely. That's why it's often seen as the most representative method, especially for diverse populations. It ensures those important subgroups aren't missed or underrepresented just by the luck of the draw.
That makes a lot of sense, building in the representation. But what if getting that perfect list or using random selection just isn't practical? Or maybe isn't even the point?
Right. That's where non-probability sampling methods come into play. These don't rely on random chance for selection. They're often more flexible, maybe cheaper, and sometimes better suited for certain kinds of research, especially qualitative studies aiming for depth.
Okay, so what are some examples here? There's quota sampling. Is that like stratified sampling, but
Right.
different?
It's similar on the surface, but crucially different in selection. With quota sampling, the researcher sets quotas for different categories. Say, I need to interview 25 men and 25 women. But then they just go out and find people who fit those categories until the quotas are filled. The selection within the category isn't random.
Ah, so they find the first 25 men they can, or the easiest ones to reach.
Potentially, yes. That's the drawback. It can be quicker. But the interviewer's choices about who to approach can introduce bias. It's not representative in the same statistical sense.
Okay. Then there's one called snowball sampling. That's sort of intriguing.
It is quite interesting. You start by finding just a few people who fit your criteria, maybe people in a specific subculture or with a rare condition, and then you ask them to refer you to others they know who also fit the criteria.
So the sample kind of grows like a snowball rolling downhill.
Exactly. It's incredibly useful, sometimes the only way, to study populations that are hidden, hard to reach, or where no list exists. Think about studying undocumented immigrants or members of an exclusive club.
Makes sense. You use existing networks. But I guess the sample might be biased towards people who know each other.
That's the trade-off, yes. You get access, but the sample might reflect specific cliques or networks within the broader group, not necessarily the whole group's diversity.
And finally, purposive sampling.
Also called judgmental sampling. Here, the researcher uses their expertise, their judgment, to deliberately select participants who have specific characteristics or knowledge relevant to the study's purpose.
So you're handpicking people because they are exactly who you need to talk to.
Pretty much. If you're studying the experiences of Nobel Prize winners, you don't randomly sample scientists. You purposively select Nobel laureates because their specific experience is the focus. It's about depth and relevance from key informants, not generalizability to a wider population.
Okay, so that covers a lot of ground on how researchers pick people. Different methods for different goals. But once they've done the interviews or the survey or whatever, how do we know if the results are any good? This brings us to reliability and validity, right? These sound really important.
Absolutely fundamental. They're the benchmarks we use to judge the quality, the trustworthiness of the research itself. They often get confused, but they measure different things.
Okay, let's break them down. First, reliability. What's that about?
Reliability is basically about consistency, repeatability.
Consistency. Like if someone else did the same study, would they get the same results?
Essentially, yes. Or if the same researcher repeated it under the same conditions. Think of a measuring tape. A reliable tape measure gives you the same length for the same object every time, no matter who uses it.
Got it. Consistent results upon repetition.
And generally speaking, quantitative methods, surveys with fixed questions, experiments with controlled procedures, they tend to be designed for high reliability. They're easier to replicate step by step.
Okay, that seems straightforward enough. But what about validity? That sounds like truth, accuracy.
That's a good way to put it. Validity is about accuracy. Does the research method actually measure what it claims it's measuring?
So it's not just about getting the same result every time, but getting the right result, the true picture.
Exactly. You could have a scale that consistently tells you you weigh 10 pounds, highly reliable. But if you actually weigh 150 pounds, that scale is completely invalid as a measure of your weight.
Oh, okay, good example.
And this is where social science gets really interesting and tricky. We often want to measure abstract things: happiness, social class, political alienation. Ensuring your method validly captures the full, complex meaning of such concepts. That's a huge challenge. Are you really measuring social class or just income, which is only one part of it?
Right, so you could reliably measure income, but that might not be a valid measure of the broader idea of social class.
Precisely. And this often leads to a kind of tension or trade-off in research design.
How so?
Well, as we said, quantitative methods often excel in reliability, consistent, replicable data points. But qualitative methods like really deep interviews or spending time observing a community, while maybe harder to replicate exactly, lower reliability in that strict sense, they're often seen as having higher validity for getting at the true, nuanced meaning of people's experiences. They let you capture the richness and context.
Ah, so qualitative digs deeper for accuracy, potentially sacrificing some consistency.
Sometimes, yes, it allows for more authentic understanding. Ideally, researchers try to find ways to maximize both, maybe by using mixed methods, combining quantitative and qualitative approaches to get the strengths of each.
Okay, so we've journeyed through choosing participants with sampling and then checking the quality of the findings with reliability and validity. These aren't just, jargon for researchers. They really are tools for us, for anyone reading about research, to understand how strong the evidence is.
Absolutely. It's all about becoming a more critical consumer of information. The world is full of claims based on studies and surveys. Understanding these core ideas, how is the sample chosen? Could someone else replicate this? Does it really measure what it says it measures? Empowers you. It helps you ask the right questions, to look beyond the headline and assess the foundation of the claim for yourself.
That's a really great takeaway. It changes how you read the news or even interpret marketing claims based on studies. So the next time you encounter some research finding, maybe pause and think, how did they get this? Who did they talk to? Does it feel consistent? Does it feel accurate? It adds a whole new layer to understanding the information around us.